Hi guys, welcome to this new episode of the 5 Minutes of Dev series. I'm your host Zelig, and today we're going to talk about styles in the DevTools, more precisely Chrome. Just a reminder, all episodes in this series are created to show you real life hacks and tricks, but may sometimes miss details, as they're not full tutorials. If you ever need any help or require further resources, do not hesitate to contact me on social media. If you are a web developer, there will be a point in your career when you will have to work with styles, either to create some new or to work with the existing one and having to debug unexpected behavior. When this situation happens, there is no better place than the development tools offered by all major browsers to solve them. If you're not very familiar with the developer tools, I really suggest you to start and use it. It's a very good tool and very useful for day-to-day operations. In Chrome, you can access it either by clicking the settings, more tools, developer tools, or by typing the shortcut Ctrl-Shift-I, or by clicking F12 on your keyboard. Today we're just going to cover one part of the development tools, such as the element tab, but as you can see, the development tools really supports you with most part of your development, from writing code to check networks and analyze existing files or sources. In the first part of this video, we're going to introduce the element tabs. The element tabs includes two different sides. The left-hand side includes the HTML of your page. So some people call this the DOM, but in reality it's not the DOM, as the DOM tree looks slightly different, but this is the HTML representation of your current page. The right-hand side includes different sub-portions such as styles, computed, event listener, and is where we probably do most of the work. It is now time to play with the styles. What we're going to do is analyze these buttons. We're going to see how they're made up, what happens if they're selected, and how they react when they are hovered or active. Most of today's HTML pages may be quite complex, so it will be very hard for us to find the buttons from here. Luckily, Chrome and the other major browser provide us a very nice shortcut. We're able to right-click on our mouse and click the inspect. Doing so, it'll jump straight to our component, in this case an A tag. There are a few things showed by these element tabs. First, we can see that it's an A tag. We're able to see the class used. We're able to see all the attributes associated to this HTML element and the value within that. For example, in this case, you can see that the feed button will take this style due to a different class called selected. In fact, if I click the next button, as you can see, it's not selected, but if we double click on it on a class, we're able to edit it, and by writing selected, the style will change. As I mentioned at the start of this video, we're going to spend a lot of time on the right-hand side of this element tab. The reason being that this is where all the styles are actually held and where we can make all the modification required to actually to see the styles and to work with the styles and to make changes to them. Like in this case, we still got our button selected. We're able to go on the right-hand side and see how this button is actually made up. So we're able to see the background color, the color of the text, the border, and by clicking this you're actually able to see the individual entry for the border. So as you may know, when you write CSS, most of the time you're able to have a shortcut, such as in this case you're able to select the thickness of the border, how the border will look like in a solid state, and the color of it. But clicking this arrow will actually show you all the different entries that we were able to actually add for the border ourselves. When working with CSS, you're able to override existing styles by declaring one of a similar specificity right below a style. If you see on this right hand side, what you see is an inverted representation of the CSS tree, so the cascading tree. So what you can see, the background, for example, was already declared here on this specific file. So if you click on it, you will actually be able to see the file. But then it was declared again in a file that was below the previously declared CSS. So what you can see is that the final value of the background is actually the one on the very top that is in the minimal JavaScript CSS file, but the one before was this one. And if you go down this list, you see things that were declared before and before and before. So this is a very important notion, and it's important to realize, because you're also able to play. And sometimes you overwrite styles that you may not want to, or you've not done it on purpose. For example, if we remove the color here, you see that this color is now being crossed out, and the one that takes effect is the one that was declared before. If I remove this color as well, and we go down the tree, we see where the other colors were declared. And again, we go down and down with something that sometimes is less specific or is being declared before. So if I remove these and remove them, what you then do, you go all the way down on when the color was a default. In this case, you can see that by removing and removing, we actually went all the way back to when the color was declared for just a normal link, and it was declared as this kind of blue. It is now time to play with the style. You got a few different options. You can either change existing declaration, like in this case, we can double click on the color and write red. You can click here, and this what we'll do will apply style to inline, so this specific element. Like in my case, I want to do color blue, and as you can see, he actually added the style to the element itself. Or you can actually click on the plus signs. What this will do, it will shortcut to the element that you actually selected. For example, we're able to click a normal button, not selected, click the plus sign. It will provide us with a shortcut to a.nav chronofilter -link. So we could, if you want, write color red. As you can see, the color is not actually changed. So what is happening here? What is actually happening is that even if we added it specifically to the button, there is some declaration below that is as higher specificity or is being added before. What you can do is you click away, you click back, and you scroll down, you see the tower declaration actually goes quite far in the tree. And the reason for it, because we just got a normal element tag and a class, while declaration above, such as the one that take priority, like this one, has 2 classes and an a tag, so make it more specific. To fix this bug, you can copy this, and then go on the left and add it. If you don't know anything about specificity and how CSS works, this is one of the arguments that you really need to learn to create very good styles. So in our case, if I remove this, everything becomes red. There's one more way of adding style to existing element, and is by actually modifying the element itself or the declaration that already exists. This is usually very useful if you're building a button, for example, and you want to play around with the sizing, the padding, and the margin. In this case, we're able to click on the padding. And as you can see, I just clicked once to select all of it. But if I click it again and just select, for example, the left-hand side, that is the top and bottom, I'm able to press the up arrow to increase, just one, or the down arrow to decrease. As you can see, it's very, very useful when you want to create something and see visually what is actually happening on the screen. Another way is actually if you click on existing one and just press the tab. When you press tab again, it will then create a new entry for you. So in our case, we want to say margin, right, 15 pixels, and break everything. The next part is going to be about colors. Sometimes you may want to see which colors is using your website, or you want to understand if it's the right color that is applied, or you're playing around with colors to see what works best. To do so, we have a very handy tool in the Chrome debugger. In this case, you can see the color as declared here, or just as a normal name. But what you can actually do is, if you click on the color itself, it opens the color picker. The color picker not only will allow you to change the color by using the gradients, using the transparent feed, but it will actually also allow you to change the way the color is declared. You may ask you, what is the usefulness of this? When I work with designer, usually they always provide me the color with RGB or RGBA, but I really prefer to have the color in X in my code. So what I usually do, I'll come here, I write the color in RGB, and then I change it to F and just copy this within my code. Something else to realize as well is that Chrome provides you a very handy tool here. This contrast ratio is very useful for accessibility purposes. So most of the websites will require a contrast ratio that is, for example, for 4.5 for AA standard and 7.0 for AAA standard. This is very useful for people that have issues with their eye, or to actually make your site more accessible. And these are tools that really save you loads of times, because as you can see, the information is provided as you develop. So as I'm doing that, I can understand that it's probably not the right color, and I can change to something that is more that supports that supports my clientele or the customers on my site. Finally, what you can see down here is the color palette. So if you click on here, you can see that there are some colors provided to you. So either the material design color, or sometimes you can have CSS variables, or you can create your own custom palette. And by doing so, you'll be able to use the same color over and over within your website, speeding up your development. The final part of this video is going to be to talk about states. You may be working on a button, and you may have to work on the button in a state of active or in a state of hover. So if you come here, for example, you can say if I hover on it, I got this background color and everything changes, but as soon as I move my mouse out, the state actually changes. So how do I actually change this? How do I develop this within the Chrome debugger? Again, the debugger tool provides us with a very handy shortcut to do this. If we go back to our buttons, for example, these specific buttons, what you're able to do is click in the right hand side of your mouse, and then you have a force state menu. So this force state is able to apply the CSS selector on your button. So in our case, I can say hover. And as you can see, the button will be automatically hovered. As you can see from the left hand side here, it will actually show you which button has an element state applied to it. So in this case, in this specific button. Doing so not only will show you the visual representation of it on the style and on the DOM element, but it will actually also change the CSS. So as you can see here, it actually is providing me information on what changes the color and how the button gets changed. Like in this case, you can see that there's a CSS declaration for the hover state. And when that happens, there is an opacity of 1 that gets applied, and the background color that actually changes. Just so that you know, in these sites, it actually is declared twice, so they can see hover and hover. So removing just on one, it will not actually show you the difference, but if you're removing them both, it actually shows you the differences between the normal button and the hover button. This is extremely useful if you want to create some changes on hover state or active state. For example, if you will do the active, the only way to see an active anchor tab is by clicking it. But clicking it will then refresh the page. Again, you will be able to press on it, right click, for state, and then do active, for example. And you will be able to see the changes and develop the changes right here in front of you. That is the end of this week's video. If you want to propose the topic for the next videos or provide me some useful feedback, please do not hesitate to write a comment below or contact me on social media. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to subscribe below to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next week for another video of the 5 minutes of Dev Chat.